Alright, today I'm going to teach you how to paint some rocks. I'm going to break it down to a few simple steps to just make it easier because it can be challenging to paint rocks. Please subscribe if you like the video. And let's get into it. Here are the 4 simple steps. Silhouette, light and shadow shapes, color, and finally details. So silhouette is basically painting the overall shape of the rock. And we're starting with the biggest shape that we have, which is the silhouette. So you want to paint with confidence, but also try and keep it precise, but not to the point where it hurts the painting. So after we're done with the silhouettes, we're gonna tackle the second largest shape in the object, which could be either the light or the shadow part. So I'm kind of breaking it apart, starting with the shadow shape here, and then just painting and trying to think about the different surfaces of the rock. Also keeping the biggest shapes in mind and not really focusing too much on the smaller details because we're gonna have time for that at the end. These are the most important parts of any painting, I think. Getting those shapes right, that's gonna determine how successful the painting is going to be, much more than, other stuff like, rendering and color. I think if you get this part right, it's going to be much more successful. So it's okay to slow down here, really make sure that this works. The second part of this would be painting the lighter part, where the light hits the object. You can also think, or you should think about where the light is coming from. So here I'm starting to add some of the texture and the details. Let's get into color. So if you've done everything so far correctly and accurately, it almost doesn't matter what you're going to do in the color phase. I mean, obviously it matters, but what I mean is you're like 80% done at this point, even without the color, or if you mess up with the color, it's still gonna somewhat work. I like starting with just painting different types of colors that are close in hue just to create some color variety underneath, and then paint over top with the colors that I think representing of what I'm seeing. For the purpose of this exercise, I'm not color picking from the photo, not because I'm a purist, but I do think that is important to go through that exercise of really trying to figure out the colors on your own. It really trains your eye and your brain to understand those relationships between the colors. Colors are just as much about the relationship between the colors and not the actual, specific individual colors. It's always a balance between everything. I'm also starting to add some of the contact shadow, meaning the darkest parts of the shadows where 2 sections of the rock meet, where there's no light, basically. It's also good to look at the painting from far away, like I just did, to make sure it all looks good overall. So here I'm kind of starting with cropping and changing the overall silhouette a little bit to match the details that I have on. It's going to make it much more believable. And now I'm going to start adding more details, more textures. Thinking about the different edges that I have here. Right now, a lot of what I have is hard edges. So you're going to see me kind of softening some of those edges, adding some fill light in the shadow. Yeah, just adding a lot of the details, the final details, and working with the texture brushes to help with that. So adding some of the smaller cracks, playing with edges. We didn't really talk about brushes, but there's different types of brushes you can use. Simple hard edge one, soft brush, and then some brushes to have some more texture to make it easier to create some of those details. I don't think the brushes are, the most important part of this. So I'm just working on some of the details, looking at the reference, choosing which details to add and which to leave out. I like adding just enough details so you can understand the surface and not really try and add everything. And then here I'm cropping the bottom of the rock to make sure the perspective still works so it doesn't lose some of the structure. So the last thing I'm doing here, I'm gonna do in a second, is add some filters over top, kind of like a post-production part, where you can kind of mess with the colors. Maybe push the contrast or play with the hues a bit more. Alright, I hope you liked this tutorial, and let me know if you have any questions in the comment section, and also make sure to subscribe if you like the video.